Hey everybody, Tom Block, Keith Jones, the Front Row Noles guys here on the Osceola.com. FSU gets a 31-13 win. It's kind of nice to not have to sweat out the fourth quarter.
Very much so. And, one of the stats that came out that I personally was not aware of is that with this win, it's the first time that FSU has had back-to-back ACC wins since 2016. That's a stat that just jumped out at me. I was unaware of that until game time.
That's also the last time I think FSU was 3-2 after 5 games. Now that year it was after a loss to North Carolina, but obviously they finished hot and made it to the Orange Bowl. I'm not suggesting that's where this team's heading, but I do think back-to-back wins is not insignificant, just from a psyche standpoint, and then we'll get into today's game.
Very much so. I mean, this team, we've talked all along that this team is a team that learns by having experiences. They don't seem to do very good reading the book or listening to the coaches. They have to experience it, and so a win is a win and is always good.
I thought two things. I thought that NC State was better defensively or gave Florida State more problems than I anticipated. I also thought they weren't as good offensively as maybe what I expected they would be. So let's start with FSU's defense. Did a really nice job. Closed strong, too. I mean, when they're driving, it was just going to change the scoreboard. It wasn't going to change the outcome of the game. But you get a play from Amari Gaynor to strip a ball on the 1 yard line or whatever it was going in. That's big time.
Florida State over the last 2 or 3 games has proven that they are very good against the run. The defensive backs and/or linebackers are in position to make plays. They've just now got to make the play. But it's, as we've talked about, it's better to be in the position and not make it than not be in the position at all. But run stoppage I thought was very, very good. And I thought overall the effort, and particularly on that last play where they forced the fumble, recovered the ball, keep NC State out of the end zone, that's a hustle play on the last play of the defensive side of the ball. That's a pretty big thing.
Gaynor had 2 sacks, too, by the way, as he's now obviously the guy with Lars Woodby out. The downside defensively is that the penalties came back. I know there was a couple of targeting in there. There was a couple of late hits on the quarterback. I mean, there was basically both teams gifted a touchdown to the other team because NC State did it in the second quarter with a bunch of penalties, but FSU did it in the second half.
Well, and Coach Taggart addressed some of those defensive penalties in his post-game comments, and while he didn't say anything because he didn't want to get fined, it was very clear that he didn't think some of those were penalties, and I think some of us in the press box thought they were borderline as well.
Yeah, a little ticky-tack. All right, so Alex Hornibrook gets the start. Threw 3 touchdowns, 300 yards, 72% completion rate, something like that. Took 8 sacks, though. Some of those sacks were on him.
Very much so. I mean, when you go back and look at the tape, 2 or 3 things are going to stand out. On a couple of those plays, those were cut blocks where the offensive lineman is just trying to cut the defensive lineman, which means Hornibrook has to get that out within 2 seconds. He hung onto the ball. And number 2, and this sounds like a backside compliment, it's really a cut, but Hornibrook's not real gifted from a foot speed standpoint. And some of those Blackman would have gotten past the line of scrimmage and they wouldn't have been counted as sacks. I think when you go back, it's legitimate that probably 4 or maybe 5 of those are sacks that you want to address. The others are kind of anomalies.
One thing that Coach Taggart brought out in the postgame is that they were planning on Blackman starting this game until late in the week.
Well, what he said in postgame that I heard was that Blackman tweaked his knee during the week, and that's the reason he didn't play. So there was an injury during the game, and then there was a subsequent injury sometime during the week that kept him from being considered for playing here tonight.
3 touchdown catches in the game from 2 guys that played at the same high school in a tiny town in Georgia. Who could have forecast that at a Turner County High?
I'm wanting somebody to ask Coach Taggart, don't give us the coaches speak, but tell us, how in the world did you get both of those guys to come here, and what was that offense like in high school?
Well, those guys came, I think they were committed before Taggart got here, but still to have 2 guys like that out of that high school, impressive. Anything else as we wrap up?
Impressive in that 10 receivers caught passes of at least 2 catches each. Hornibrook, much like last week, did a very good job of spreading the ball around. Florida State's got some talent on the offensive side. They just got to keep getting better.
Well, always fun to make improvements in a bye week off a win as compared to the alternative. Noles 3-2 head into a bye week. Clemson up next in 2 weeks. He's Keith. I'm Tom. This is the Osceola.com.